Hey guys, welcome back to MFO. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. New Year's is coming along, and we made some predictions a year ago about what 2025 was going to look like. And I got to hold myself accountable and see how good or how poorly I was in making 5 predictions about 2025. I will make some predictions about 2026. That'll be a different episode, but let's go back and look at what some of my predictions were for 2025 and whether I was right on or whether I was a little bit off. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. So let's jump in. It was a year ago. I was talking to Megan by the Christmas tree, and I made 5 predictions about 2025. The first one, I don't think I went out on too much of a limb. I said that the NPFL was going to get a lot of positive attention in 2025 based on the changes and decisions that they made at the end of 2024. That was me going out on a limb, right? Didn't go out on a limb too much, and they absolutely got a lot of positive attention. They changed the format, meaning no forward-facing sonar. They changed their platform. Although the platform that they were on, it's certainly much better than what it was a year ago. They're still working through their TV platform, and when I say TV, I mean their internet platform, to get the bugs out. They don't have it as tight as, certainly not as tight as MLF, not as tight as Bass either, quite honestly. It ranks 3rd from a standpoint of just tightness in the show quality, the transmission of the fishing, without getting freeze frames and blurriness and static and those kinds of things. Quite honestly, there's a lot of guys who take issue with the personalities that they have. I don't. I think they're good, and I think that quality, I think those are just matters of personal taste and preference, to be honest. But they do need to work still, and I know they are, on, tightening up that transmission, getting it to be a high quality broadcast. But they definitely have gotten that positive feedback. And the one thing that I said a year ago is that the one thing they needed to do was to not trip over themselves, to not shoot themselves in the foot, and stay out of their way. The positive attributes, the positive press, the positive attention that they were going to get would all be for naught if in the meantime they did something to sabotage their success. And congratulations, that was the big accomplishment, in my opinion, for 2025, is that the NPFL 100% stayed out of their own way and didn't have any negatives come out of the season in terms of their administration making any kind of bonehead, decisions or things like that. And they've kind of just gone along and been the league that doesn't have forward-facing sonar and that has really garnished a lot of attention, with a lot of the older pros joining ranks, and they have what they consider to be a full field going into 2026. So that's a prediction that I'm going to count in the win category, although it wasn't a very hard one for sure. But I also compliment NPFL on staying out of their way to be able to get there. Now, the second prediction that I made is that I predicted that right around this, I made this prediction a year ago, but I predicted that right around this time of year that we would be seeing that a lot of circuits would be downsizing. And yes, the Major League Fishing BPT has downsized, but we knew that was coming, and so that wasn't so much of a prediction. I really assumed that a lot of other circuits, including the pro circuit, might be downsizing. And in fact, that's just the opposite. we have increased our numbers. The pro circuit has. The elites are maintaining approximately the same numbers. The opens, I think we are going to see that there's lower numbers of guys in the opens, but I don't think that's for the reason that I was predicting. I think that's an unpopularity with Bass and their rule structure and things like that. So I was wrong on that. However, put a little asterisk next to this one. It could just be too early yet, because and I'm going to address that in my prediction episode when we talk about what's going to happen in 2006. So I'm going to put that on the fail category. I didn't get that one right, but don't hold your breath thinking that I might not continue that prediction going into 2026. Let's look at what number 3 was. Prediction number 3 related to myself, and that was that I was going to do better than I had this season before. So my 2025 season was going to be better than my 2024. And it was. To be honest, it was. I finished 80th in point standings. The reality is that I did not fish the last event on the St. Lawrence River. My mom had some major health problems, was in the hospital, and I chose not to fish that event. So coming in 80th, which was a decent finish comparatively, would have actually, I was en route to be in the upper 60s, at 70, somewhere along those lines, had I just fished that last event and really not done well, just gotten the points that you get for pretty much fishing, would have absolutely ended up somewhere in the upper 60s or 70s, which is better than I've finished in the past. So am I satisfied with that? Not at all. I still need to get in there and cash some checks. Still need to be looking at qualifying for the championship. That's the goal for this coming year. And so the prediction was correct. I did better, but still need to get better than that still. The 4th prediction had to do with boat prices. And again, I think this is a situation where I was probably a little premature. Boat prices haven't come down, but I tell you what, boat sales are down tremendously. And the amount of surplus, we talked in the video a year ago about supply and demand. Well, there is a huge supply and not a big demand right now. And the supply is all over the place. You go on Bass Boat Central, you can find used bass boats, used boats in general, all over the place. And the prices just have not gotten there yet in terms of being lowered to recognize the fact that the supply is so high right now, and you're not seeing those numbers come down to reflect that. Again, will it in the coming months and years? I absolutely believe it's got to, but I'm going to have to put that in the not correct category in my predictions, because as of right now, I haven't really seen prices come down across the board. Boats just are not selling. The prices are still up there from what I consider to be up there in price. Guys are going to take a loss if they sell their boat. There's no doubt about that. But people are just not willing to sell a boat and take that big of a loss right now. That's what we're kind of seeing from what I can see. And then the 5th prediction had to do with the opens. I said that I thought the opens were going to be kind of a Wild West in that they didn't have co-anglers. And so you had a lot of guys that were vying for those positions to get into the EQs and to make the elites. And without co-anglers there to check rules, that there might be kind of a lot of issues related to rule infractions within the opens. I'm going to put it in the I wasn't right category, but I'm also going to say that this year's opens had it was the Wild West, but for totally different reason. The number of cancellations in the opens was incredible. Incredible. There was one division that I don't think they had one event that didn't have at least one day canceled somewhere along the event. I think every event got shortened, by 1 or possibly 2 days throughout that entire division. When that happens, there isn't a whole lot that else is going to make news. It's going to be the shortened event, and it's just kind of a free-for-all in terms of who can go out and win the event on 1 or 2 days. My prediction didn't come true. I don't know whether my prediction could have come true if they fished them all or not. I don't know if it would have, but it was definitely kind of a chaotic season for the Opens for sure, but not for the reasons that I predicted. So I kind of went out there, and I would say at best I was 50-50 here, and kind of, even if you give me partial credit for some of those, not my best year predicting, but you can see where I was thinking with each of those predictions, and we'll see if we don't do better. Stick around, and we'll have our prediction episode coming out later on this week. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in as always, and we thank you for subscribing and hitting the like button, sending in your comments, and we'll see you again tomorrow on another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.